For today's video, we brought in 10 different rappers, and we have to answer the question, are they still in their prime? Are they past their prime? Or is their prime maybe even still ahead of them? So let's get things started with Eminem, and it's a very interesting question just because I feel like we've been kind of documenting his fall off for the last couple of years, and more his fall off in terms of music quality, in terms of commercial success. I mean, he's still one of the biggest artists in the world, and when it comes to Eminem, for me, I just feel like there's been a real big change since the 2010s decade, specifically towards the latter end of that, where he's making a lot of love songs, his delivery's changing, he's sounding a bit more robotic, he has these choppy flows, and I don't know if you agree with this, but I feel like he tries to over-explain his bars.
That's very true.
And really spell them out for you. It's
Yeah,
like
like he
he's
does
still
too
trying
much.
to prove he's the greatest when we know he's a fucking crazy lyricist,
No,
bro.
I get it, but I understand. But what I'm saying about Eminem is that I feel like he is past his prime just because if you really want to talk about his prime, I really do feel like that 3-album run of the Slim Shady LP, the Marshall Mathers LP, and the Eminem Show was really the peak of his dominance. And obviously, commercially, the guy's still on top. I mean, at the moment, at the time of this recording, he is the rapper with the most monthly listeners on Spotify, which is absolutely incredible to think about because he started rapping in the 90s, and now it's kind of like this new generation of listeners are coming and gravitating towards Eminem's music. So commercially, yes, I still do think he's in his prime because he's dominating
No,
the
he's
streaming
not.
era.
He's not, bro.
Well,
Commercially, he's not in his prime. He's not putting up 1 million first week.
I know, but who is? But that's the thing.
But we're talking about Eminem's prime, bro. Eminem with the Eminem Show and the Marshall Mathers LP was selling 1 million units first week, and those are diamond albums. He doesn't have
yeah,
that
but that's
today.
the CD era. That's the bundles, and the bundles have changed
I'm
everything
all worried
completely.
about that. We're talking
Yeah,
about
but what
someone's
do you
prime,
mean?
bro. Eminem is still in his prime in 2023.
But I think you just completely ignored my fucking
bro.
my fucking
You're out of your mind.
explanation. You didn't even listen to what I was saying. The guy is still one of the most popular rappers in the world at the moment.
so?
He is still on top of the game commercially, meaning that commercially, he is still in peak form. That's what I'm saying. Quality and output-wise, if you would have listened to my fucking explanation, no, he's not there right now.
But
I
even
said it.
commercially, he's not putting up the numbers he used to. Therefore, he is no longer in his prime commercially
But it's
speaking,
completely
or music
different.
quality.
Yeah, but it's a completely different situation right now for streams and sales. I mean, the whole bundle thing in 2020 completely
Bro,
changed
when was the last time
landscape.
Eminem had a #1 hit, bro? Tell me.
When was the last time anyone had a fucking #1 hit, bro, or had an album go over 1 million first week? Like, example, we're gonna be talking about Drake later on in this episode.
Bringing other people in, bro. Stop looking at the entire landscape. We're talking about Eminem himself, and his prime is beyond him.
Yes,
And
it is, but I'm
speaking
saying-
now
but-
to the music quality, because for some reason you're jaded and you think that he's putting up the same numbers he used to. But speaking about the music quality, why do you think he's not up to par with what he used to make?
Well, I mean, it's been since the 2000s. I mean, you could have the conversation that he's been too forceful with his writing at times. The song concepts have gotten stale. I mean, when you're delivering songs like Stepdad on a studio album, you have to start asking questions. And even, let's say, for those conceptual albums like A Music to Be Murdered By, which I understand a lot of people do enjoy, it's not for me. I don't feel like he's fully fleshing out these studio albums in a proper way. Plus, I also feel like he's kind of holding back on his collaborations. For example, like, you'll get a fucking Don Toliver feature, but then, it's asking, like, where's the Conway feature? Where's the West Side Gun feature? Where's Boldy James, a Detroit native? Like, I feel like he has to maybe go into a different direction with his music to be able to recapture that prowess.
Yes, but I feel like there's no hope in sight, because even when he's linking up with someone like Dr. Dre on a song like Gospel for that GTA 5-pack, he still had that like old man robotic flow, had bars like I serial kill and you're Kellogg's, like just really some weak bars. And again, I feel like Eminem's playful and really choppy flow is not serving anybody any well, and I feel like he's on a mission right now to kind of mess up his prestigious catalog. That's what it feels like as a listener.
Well, I mean, you can't touch his legacy, though. Regardless
Yeah.
of it, regardless of what you want to say about Eminem, the legacy is cemented, and he will forever be one of the most dominant artists, not even rappers, of all time.
And he did have
so-
the best prime, arguably, ever for any rapper.
That's true. He is out of his prime, but I still do think, like, commercially right now, he's fucking ripping it. So there's a bit of devil's advocate to play on that end, but let's continue with this. Let's go on to Drake, because I was going to use him in the Eminem argument because it's the same thing that applies to him. Like, you could argue that Drake's out of his prime right now for output. I mean, people say that it's a Take Care, Nothing Was the Same. If you're reading this, it's Too Late, What a Time to Be Alive, and Views Run, where for 4 years, he was literally dominating everything. But commercially, he's still at the top of the game. He still has #1 hits. He's still having #1 albums. He's releasing some of the most commercially successful music of the year. Output-wise, even music quality, Her Loss was a fantastic listen. I really did enjoy it. Even going to something like Dark Lane demo tapes, double album with Scorpion, Certified Lover Boy. there is quality within the drops. I don't think it's as dominant, or it's at the level of Take Care, Nothing Was the Same, and If You're Reading This, It's Too Late.
Yeah,
So
that's why I
my
think it's
opinion.
tough to say that Drake is out of his prime, because I saw a fan like defending him on a video recently. He was saying how like Drake can drop a #1 album tomorrow and nobody else can do that. He can literally create hits out of nothing anytime he feels like fucking dropping. And I mean, it's interesting to look at Drake because even though his later albums haven't been his best, he's still been turning out pretty fire albums every fucking year. Like, who else could say that they do that at that level of consistency for that frequent of a basis? But when it comes to Drake, I mean, it's interesting because honestly, never mind arguably his worst album, some of his worst ever vocal performances, in my opinion, when you're looking at songs like Currents, like Falling Back, like A Keeper, I feel like that R&B and singing Drake was way better from 2011 to 2017, but his pen game and his rapping ability only keeps improving, bro, and leveling up when you're looking at shit like Lemon Pepper Freestyle, Middle of the Ocean, Diplomatic Immunity. Like, everything from the last 5 years, we've seen Drake elevate as an MC. And for that reason, there's too much leaning towards him still being at the top of his game, despite maybe his prime being, let's say, that Take Care, Nothing Was the Same, If You're Reading This
On
era.
the MC side of things, he's definitely been in his bag, even going back to Scorpion, stuff like 8 out of 10 or Sandra's Rose or Is There More. Those are top tier lyrical performances from Drake that you're getting in a modern era from Drake. And what's interesting about Drake's career right now, too, is that, as you said, people are still as hungry as ever, bro, for his projects. I mean, putting up over 600,000 copies first week, bro, on CLB in the fucking streaming era after the bundles is unheard of, like, especially for a rapper. So, I mean, even on that side of things, like, it's so hard to say that he's out of his prime because he's still there. You know, the output's there, the commercial success is still there, and yes, okay, maybe like his best performances ever were within like that mid 2010s decade, but still, he's not out of that form. You know, he's still
not,
there.
But I also feel like he's being more passive now, especially when it comes to even something like features. You look at songs like Betrayed off of that Trippie Redd album. You look at something like I'm On One from the Future album from last year, and he'll kind of like break the pattern of his flow or go on productions that don't necessarily suit his voice at times. So I feel like he's becoming a bit more passive in that sense. But I think what he needs to do is maybe, in my opinion, maybe focus less on trying to please everybody and make like a concise, focused album.
Yeah, but he can never do
I
that.
feel like he has his best album still in him if he wanted to do it, bro. In my opinion. I know it sounds crazy, but I feel like
that's a good
he could
take,
do it.
though. That's a good take. I mean, it's interesting for Drake too because, like, do you ever picture Drake doing a conceptual album? You know, like
No,
that's
but I
that's
like
the thing.
it.
Yeah, but like it's different because he's positioned himself as like the biggest rapper in the world that caters to everyone. You know, like you're gonna have those pipe downs and Race My Mind. And by the way, like I kind of disagree with the R&B cuts because you do have like Pipe Down, Race My Mind, even like the End of Fucking Fans. Like that's really good too. Like you do have those moments in
they're
glimpses
all right.
of
They're
R&B
just
where
not like.
they're actually really solid. Even something like That's How You Feel. Like there's those melodic performances that feel at home for Drake too. So while I do agree with you, I still do think he's in his
Drake's
prime.
in his prime, guys.
I do think he's in his prime. But let's
Next
talk
up.
about Lil Baby because It's Only Me, I feel like, put a bad taint on Lil Baby's music, especially as of recently. Like, Lil Baby was on the craziest run you could possibly think of from 2017 all the way up to 2021. Every single guest appearance was absolutely immaculate. He had the biggest, let's say, albums of the year, too, with something like, let's say My Turn, which was absolutely incredible for 2020,
Fire album.
especially in the midst of COVID. But now it feels like people aren't necessarily gravitating towards the sound anymore because he has a hard time switching up his sound. He has a hard time, let's say, transitioning onto other productions and sounding as good and sounding as passionate. Plus, like, for the amount of features that he's been giving recently, it kind of ruins the studio album experience because you go into It's Only Me and it kind of raises the question. I've heard this verse like 15 times over. The punchlines are getting repetitive. He doesn't have that same sting as he once used to. So where do you stand with it? Like, where do you think he's going with his career?
I think he's at the top of the food chain when it comes to being one of the biggest rappers of his generation. I mean, he's still putting up 200K plus first week. He's still one of the most in-demand feature artists. He's still headlining some of the biggest shows worldwide. But when it comes to Baby, I think it's a problem of complacency. I feel like with Baby, it's as if he's moving and working like he just won the lottery and now he's coasting. And now that hunger, which is to me the best aspect of Baby when he was coming up, looking at songs like Southside, looking at songs like Some to Prove, he was rapping like he was trying to put food on the table, bro. Like he had that hunger, and now that's totally removed from his music, especially looking at an album like It's Only Me and looking at Fully Loaded, a feature he just had off of the Trippy album, where he's starting to slur his delivery a bit more and just coming off as a bit lazier, in my opinion, in terms of his output. And I feel like I want to see Baby take more risks. Something like the bigger picture, bro. Like getting Baby's perspective on police brutality. That was refreshing.
He's
that
a
was
great
new.
lyricist as well.
He could be if he wants to be.
Exactly. Like he has great penmanship, and he could actually fit on so many different types of productions just because of how good he is as an MC. But I feel like now, especially with It's Only Me, they were straight going for the streams with that one. Like it didn't even feel like a project that was put together and coherently put together. And even when you look at that snippet for the song Hey, right? When they were in the studio, even his boys were there sleeping. Like everyone looked like they just didn't give a fuck. And then after that, because even with Baby, like looking at something like Emotionally Scarred, example, like a single off of My Turn, those hits stuck. You know, those hits were really there for the year, and Something Prove, example. Those hits were there for that year, but looking at something like Hey, not even the biggest hits off the album are sticking through rotations.
And even stuff like Street Gossip or Harder Than Ever, those albums are still living super well. You have massive bangers on those, but I feel like Baby right now has mastered the recipe for putting together these boring songs that are not horrible, but just super forgettable.
Exactly. Yeah, like you'll
It's
never
copy and paste songs.
Like you'll never go through that and be like, oh shit, like that's horrible, and I can't put that into my headphones. It's just like I've heard that too many times for me to be invested into the music.
But
at this point.
I do think this has been the weakest part of Baby's career. So I do think his prime was maybe that 2020 run, but his prime could still be ahead of him. But right now he's not in his prime though. I'll say that.
Yeah, right now he's kind of out of form for let's say the output side of things. But let's keep going on with this. Let's go on to Lil Uzi, because for you and I, you know, we were kind of disappointed with Eternal to Take, but it's growing on me. You know, it's actually a solid project. Uzi's coming in with full of energy. And at the time, I think that I just had so many high expectations for Eternal to Take because it was the myth of the project. You know, there was all kinds of, you know, let's say different scandals behind it, and everyone wanted to hear it. Everyone was really down to hear it. And then once you got the album, was like, oh fuck, you know, maybe I expected more, or maybe I expected a different type of sound. But now looking back after all these years, I enjoy the project. And you could say that Uzi's in his prime right now. Absolutely. Even after Just Wanna Rock, like he is proving his dominance once again.
It's tough to say just because we've had to do a lot of waiting when it comes to Uzi. I mean, we've been waiting for 3 years without an album, but he's managed to stay relevant for all of that time without dropping an actual studio album, which is fucking impressive, and that's not easy to do these days. And what I love about Uzi and what he's been doing with this hiatus that he's been on is the fact that he's been experimenting and switching up his style. You look at Just Wanna Rock, and he brought in the Jersey Club vibe. You look at something like Demon High, he tried out like this post-pop and punk type of sound. You look at Red and White, kind of returned to that bubblegum trap sound that he was doing back in 2016. So he's been kind of giving us a taste of everything that he can do and sort of gearing himself up to know what direction he wants to go into with the Pink Tape. And to me, this is going to be the most crucial album of his career. And I feel like this is when we're actually going to have the verdict of, is Uzi still in his prime? But for the time being, he's been killing it. Red and White EP has grown on me. Eternal Take has somewhat grown on me. And Uzi is just great at making this upbeat, fun music that has these danceable rhythms, bro, and he's still at the top of his game to me.
Because even for artists right now, it's hard to make music because you want to make stuff that's clippable. There has to be dances behind them, and there's this whole marketing movement behind all of the music that we're hearing right now in 2023, but I feel like Uzi's doing a great job at that. He's actually making quality and shit that sounds different. Like, listening to Just Wanna Rock, it has this sound where you're like, fuck, that's contagious.
Yeah.
And then you hear how the crowds are responding to this music and how they're getting played live, and people are going absolutely fucking
shit's
crazy.
litty, bro.
It's absolutely lit. So Lil Uzi is still in his prime. Let's go on to A$AP Rocky, because speaking about hiatuses, it's been what now, like 5 years without a Rocky album. His last one dropped in May of 2018 with Testing, and there was mixed reception with it. Like, he actually came out and said that he was sad that people didn't enjoy it. But to be quite honest with you, bro, the album's really good. Like,
Rocky out of his prime.
Like, you say he's out of his prime.
Rocky's out of his prime.
Wow, that's interesting.
And I don't think Testing's a bad album by any means. I do think it's his weakest album. But I'll be honest with you, it's been like probably a good couple of years at least that nothing that Rocky's been doing has really been moving me or getting me that excited. Even looking at Same Problems, which he just dropped, cool song. I love the message behind it, but musically, production is a bit one note. His performance isn't really that captivating at all. And when it comes to Rocky 2 on the commercial aspect of things, Testing was his lowest selling album, and I feel like he's waited too long. Uzi's been able to kind of keep people excited and hyped and anticipating his next project. With Rocky, I feel like we should have gotten the album by now. And given the path he's taken, I feel like he should have done more to kind of get us ready. Or at least keep us locked in.
What could he have done more?
Dropping better singles, maybe dropping an EP, maybe dropping an ASAP Mob tape. That's something else too, is that I feel like when Rocky was in his prime in the 2015, 2016 era, let's say, he was being super prominent in terms of working with the ASAP Mob. He was putting out his best records off of At Long Last ASAP. Like, Rocky now, I feel like there's not as much conversation around the name, and the buzz has kind of dropped to me.
Well, I do agree with you on certain aspects. I just kind of want to give him the benefit of the doubt because he hasn't dropped anything that's like subpar to his quality standards. Even something like DMB, I know a lot of people didn't enjoy it, but I really fucked with that single, and it was one of my most played songs of last year. Even something like Same Problems, like I understand what you mean about it being a bit flat in production, a bit more subdued, but that's the point of the song. It was a tribute song. So, like, I'm not going to say that he's out of his prime based on that. And Rocky, like, he could take 5 years off. Like, people are still going to be hungry as fuck for this album.
You think it's going to sell as much as something like
I think it's going to do better than Testing. I think it's going to do better than Testing.
I hope so.
I think it's going to do better than
I'm
Testing.
rooting for Rocky, bro. I mean, I just think that, you know, the buzz around his name has kind of died off.
Well, at least the buzz and hunger for me is still as prominent as ever. Like,
Yeah.
if Rocky announces an album this year, it's still going to be one of my most anticipated albums of the year. And I feel like there's a bit of an unfair criticism with Rocky right now, especially when I go through certain tweets and replies, let's say on stuff that NFR posts, where it's like, oh, this guy's washed, or oh, this guy's this and that. Like, no, he's not. He's still delivering quality records, and he's still there. Like, you're still tuning into those records, and people still want to hear them. So, even looking at the track record, there hasn't been a dip in quality, especially on the studio albums. Going back to Testing.
Testing is still his weakest, though. But
it's not like it's a bad album. That's a great
but you have your misses on there, and that's not something that we're accustomed to, you know, being in Rocky's fan base, to get those misses on albums, looking at songs like Call Drops and a couple other joints. It's like he tried to mesh and juxtapose so many sounds together on certain tracks, and they just kind of felt clustered at times and disjointed.
Yeah, but you're still getting mega bangers like Praise the Lord, or I'd say something like Buckshots, or even ASAP Forever. There is some incredible records on those albums. So I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. I'm still saying he's in his prime, but there's a certain skepticism.
Rocky's out of his prime, but I think he can kind of get, you know, he could put his best foot forward with the next one and hopefully get back into that zone. But next up, we have Lil Wayne, and there's a lot to talk about for Wayne in his prime because he's been in the game for 25 fucking years. And at that point, you have to expect him not to have a peak of 25 years. I mean, who's able to do that? And I think that for me, Wayne's prime was probably from 2005 to 2011, where you got Carter 2, Carter 3, Carter 4. You got the first 3 dedications, I believe. You got the Drought 3, like just some of his best mixtapes and studio albums. But right now, what's the sentiment for you around Wayne and his music? Because you said that like this happened when Can Nobody dropped. You're like, oh, it's new Wayne. I'm not down, bro. I'm not down to bump some new Wayne.
Yeah, no, I'm not. No, I'm not. Like, I'm being completely honest with you. Like, there's certain aspects of Wayne's music that have kind of aged poorly for me over the years, especially on the auto-tune front, where like you go into certain records and it sounds absolutely atrocious in your headphones.
Funeral?
Yeah, but it doesn't remove the fact that he's still one of my favorite artists of all time and someone that I've been following for such a long time. So, I mean, yeah, the guy's out of his prime. I mean, there's no debate there.
I don't think there's much of a debate, but Wayne's still killing it, though. Like, he's still dropping those slick punchlines. Can't Nobody was fire. His feature run 2021.
I ate my words on Can't Nobody because that was a fantastic record, and you have Wayne in, like, that punch bag line where every single line interconnects, and, like, you're invested from start to finish. The production totally makes sense for him, but then you go to an album like Funeral, and yeah, like, there's certain songs like Mahogany on there that sound absolutely incredible, but then those like whiny Wayne performances that I don't necessarily gravitate towards anymore. Where's the value?
The auto crooning's bad on songs like Dreams, Nevermind off of Funeral, but I feel like his output's still been fire, bro. Even like what he did on the West Side Gun album, what he's done on something like Seeing Green, like you can still get the best out of Wayne in certain moments. So to me, I still feel like something like Carter 6 could be an album of the year contender. Like, even though he's out of his prime, he's still killing it, in my opinion.
Yeah, he'll still deliver you quality records. And I do feel like the Carter 6 will probably be a quality album because he never disappoints on that front. But to say that he's in his prime, I think would be false.
So, Wayne out of his prime. But next up, we have Big Sean. And I got to be honest with you. I know that Big Sean has been placed alongside some names like J. Cole, Freddie Gibbs, Drake, Danny Brown as being seen and regarded as one of the best rappers of the 2010s decade, he was never on that level to me. I feel like Big Sean was always more of an average rapper, always created some nice club hits, always had some fire mixtapes. But in my opinion, Big Sean never was the guy to have an album of the year contender, was never a guy to really shift the culture all that much, in my opinion. So to me, his prime was probably 2015, 2017 with Dark Sky Paradise and I Decided. But he never had like a huge moment in terms of dominating a year, in my opinion.
Yeah, because always like there was this sort of like corny label that was always attached to Big Sean's music where people felt like he was putting out records that didn't necessarily do anything for them and it was kind of empty to a certain extent. But I could argue against that because then you are getting great studio album experiences like Dark Sky Paradise, like I Decided. Even Detroit 2 back in 2020 was a fantastic drop.
Cool.
So like you could go back to these albums and be like, yeah, there's quality within his career and he had his massive moments. But again, like going back, when did that Hit Boy project drop, bro? What year was
2021. It made no noise, bro.
It made
that EP made nothing.
Yeah, but the thing is that it was kind of more of a subdued drop where there wasn't any promotion behind it. So I understand. But even going back to that, you go through a lot of the bars and the flows that he's using, and a lot of it sounds stale. It doesn't sound good for the year anymore.
He had Metro Boomin for a whole album,
but that's
and
what
he couldn't make anything out of that.
And you go back to those productions, and you're like, wow, give that to someone like Drake, and you'll see what happens, you know? And I feel bad for Big Sean because he's had these moments where shit could have sounded absolutely impeccable, but then you go into the records and they fall flat or they just don't hit how they're supposed to be hit,
But
you know?
he's put out great albums. Like, even looking at Dark Sky Paradise, looking through that list of hits, bro, and you're looking at I Don't Fuck With You, and you're looking at All Your Fault, the back and forth he had with Kanye. Even Detroit 2, bro, had these great introspective songs like Deep Reverence. Like, he could be a great songwriter, and he is a great artist at times, but lately, I feel like he's not in his prime element, even though Detroit 2 was a good album.
Yeah.
I still feel like that mid-2010s was kind of Sean's prime, in my opinion.
I agree with you.
Next up, we have Logic, and Logic's trajectory has been pretty fucking wild because he retired, he unretired, he left Def Jam, he just put out his first fully independent studio album, and now he's getting a bunch of hate for remixing It Was a Good Day by Ice Cube. And that was an atrocious performance of that song, bro.
You didn't like it? You weren't.
I didn't like it. And to me, overall, I just feel like Logic is the most inconsistent rapper in the game, where you literally don't know if his next album might be the best or worst album of the year. And Vinyl Days was fire. I love the concept behind that. The chop ups, and the sample flipping was great. Logic was rapping with a battery on his back, but you know, College Park wasn't that impressive to me.
It was a good album.
And I feel like we're in this stage right now where we don't know if we're getting a good or a bad Logic album every time he puts it out. But when you look back at that 2014, 2015 era with Under Pressure, even 2013, Welcome to Forever, The Incredible True Story, like, that's easily Logic's prime.
Yeah, that is Logic's prime. But the thing is with Logic is, as you said, you don't know if he's going to go back into that prime Logic form or if he's going to give you a Bobby Tarantino 3 where it's literally a troll album and it kind of wastes your time as a listen. So I love Logic. I've been following his career for a long time now. I know a lot of people around me do enjoy his music, but to say that he's in his prime would be absolutely false. I don't think you can say that at the moment because, as you were saying, looking back at that early 2010s, mid 2010s era where the Young Sinatra series was being fully fleshed out. You had Under Pressure, which is arguably his best album. Conceptual albums like The Incredible True Story. He was on a fucking run. Even the first Bobby Tarantino installment was really nice.
Even number 2 was pretty cool.
So like he had that run, but then as you started getting like the supermarkets, Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, like
Everybody also wasn't great.
But it was starting to get a bit shady.
I do like that right now. He is focusing on making art that he fucks with and not chasing the bag anymore. He's not looking for the radio money. He's not looking for the Billboard placements. He's making art that's true to him. But did you hear the It Was a Good Day remix yet? Because it's stinky, bro.
It's really not that great. But I don't think
he's like singing the song with like a seductive vibe, and it just
but he's having
so
fun
bad.
Though. But like he's jokes.
He is.
Logic has like this comedic factor to his performances of late, and I don't think that it's quality. I think it's funny to get into.
Anyways,
and he's making music that he enjoys. Like for Joe Budden to come out and say that the guy should never touch a mic again. Like,
that's
what are you
cap,
talking? Yeah, what are you talking about? Like, let the guy have fun. Let the guy enjoy himself. But listen, I don't think he's in his prime stills. But let's go on to Joey Badass. And I think you and I are going to have some very different opinions about this because I was rebumping 2000 and the record is sounding as great as ever. I think it's fucking quality. You're getting fantastic songs from start to finish. Yes, there are some holes within the track list, but then again, it's still an amazing record in my eyes. So I know you're gonna say he's out of his prime, but
Yeah,
like,
I will say that.
so
You
what
guessed
are your
that.
like besides?
What are my reasons?
Yeah, what are your reasons for that?
I think, of course, everything that Joey Badass has dropped throughout his career, looking at Before the Cash, looking at All American Badass, even looking at 2000, it's all been quality, bro. Even the Beast Coast album was fire. So Joey isn't necessarily making bad music. He's not even making mid music. He's making fire music. But to me, it's one of those rare instances where you have a rapper from this newer generation that peaked with his first project, bro. Joey Badass's prime was in 1999, and when I'm looking at the double entendres, when I'm looking at the songwriting, when I'm looking at his level and his caliber as an MC in 2012, Joey Badass hit his peak at the age of 17, bro. And since then, I have not had or seen an album with that level of impact and with that caliber of rapping, in my opinion.
That's a bit of a lie. I mean, Before the Cash was absolutely incredible.
What's his best project?
It's 1999, but okay, I'll ask you then. Nas, did he peak at Illmatic?
No, but like that era of like Illmatic and It Was Written was Nas's prime.
Yeah, but you could say something like Before the Cash is still close to 1999, and I know a lot of Joey fans do feel that way. So are you going to give that same treatment to Nas, let's say, in that conversation?
I mean, yeah, because if you look like deeper in, you start getting Nostradamus and you start getting weaker records. And it's not to say that Nas's like middle range catalog is bad, but it's not as good as a certain era in his time. Like even Summer Nights by Joey, another fucking fire mixtape. So I feel like the early days of Joey, there was a sense of hunger. There was just this ability to gun for that top position, to get that crown. And on 2000, I feel like there was a bit of a lack of growth and artistic evolution, in my opinion. After a 5-year hiatus, I wanted to see him kind of level it up. And because of that, if I'm getting close to the same product 10 years ago and you're rapping at a higher level 10 years ago, I'm going to side with that era of the artist. Because it was the first time seeing it.
I mean, yes and no, because there was a huge artistic shift in Joey's perspective on 2000. Like,
I'm not talking about the subject matter. I'm talking about.
But that's I mean, that's all of Joey Badass's
I'm
career.
talking about
his writing.
the
He's one of
sound.
the best.
I'm talking about the flows. I'm talking about more the output artistically rather than just what he's writing. Obviously, he's a good songwriter. That's not a mystery.
Yeah, but I mean, like, so you're not giving Joey Badass points on 2000 because of the shift in mindset and like leveling up, let's say, on a content matter standpoint. Like, example,
I mean, bro, he was giving you super introspective and like mogul-esque talk on 1999. Listen to Third Eye shit, bro.
Yeah,
he
but
was giving you those fire perspectives since the beginning of his career.
Yeah, but like every artist kind of sticks to a same sort of mindset throughout their career. It kind of changes as they grow as an artist. So I mean, for someone like Joey, I'm still gonna say he's in his prime because the track record is fucking flawless, bro. Like the guy hasn't missed yet. He's still rapping like he's in his prime.
And it's the only time in Joey's career where I'm starting to see like some dud singles. Looking at something like Revenge, looking at the song with Chris Brown off of 2000. That was never a case in Joey's career where he would put out like mediocre tracks.
Yeah, but like you can't really say that the guy's out of his prime because of 2 songs. I mean,
but I had my other reasoning. That's just to add on to it.
Yeah, but I mean, regardless of that, the track record is still in a fantastic place. So I'm gonna say Joey's still in his prime.
He's out of his prime, in my opinion. But again, he can recapture it anytime he wants to. But let's end it off with Conway the Machine, who's been flooding the market, been to me, the best lyricist out of the OG Griselda trio. And when it comes to Conway, I do feel like his best year was 2020 when you got the fucking Alchemist produced Lulu, which was fire. And you got, to me, what might be his best album, From King to a God. And Conway has not really slowed up since then. Even looking at 2022 with God Don't Make Mistakes, you got his most personal and, kind of pain-driven album up to this point. So Conway's in his prime to me. What about you? Can you contest that in any way?
No, I don't think you can. Even going back to La Machina, like, people could argue that it was like that Lulu era, maybe for people.
Yeah.
I mean, you could argue that, but no, regardless, it's been all fucking fire since. And his output is incredible because he'll never give you a bad verse. I've never heard anything besides fantastic from Conway the Machine. He is literally one of the most consistent rappers you will find in hip hop right now, and he literally doesn't miss. He's a guy that when you see a feature, when you hear a new Conway single or a new mixtape, when he's on another Griselda members project, you know it's going to be fucking fire. And another thing is that Conway dips into so many different bags where he could create a certain type of record with a different writing style in comparison to another one, and it sounds always different from one to another. That's what I like too. And if you want to look at his feature game, almost every single time, bro, he washes everyone else on the song. Either if it's, let's say, posse cuts, or even like, let's say, something like Alfredo, he's there, bro, and he's so prominent to where the hunger never really leaves him. So that's why I still do think Conway's in his prime.
Even looking at something like KD, where like he took the whole Bodak Yellow, no flocking type flow and made that his own. Like he's always experimenting with his flows and cadences, and he can bar up with Method Man, with Lil Wayne, and the best spitters in the game, and always hold his own, if not have the better verse, which is pretty fucking wild. I think that he has the chance to go down as one of the best lyricists in the game. So Conway definitely in his prime.
Yeah,
right? We
absolutely.
can agree.
And if you say otherwise, I think that you're just not listening to the records properly. So guys, that's gonna wrap it up for today's episode. Let me know, where did Lou and I get it right? Where did we get it wrong? And if you guys want to see this, episode again, maybe a part 2 to this, what rappers would you recommend us? Thank you guys so much for watching this, and we'll catch you in the next one.